We're good. How about yourself? All right.
I remember that. I just been friends with her son since I was a little kid. We went to all through school together. And now my son is dating his son. I mean, my daughter is dating.
His grandson.
Where is it?
I was gonna say, not his son.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Stuff. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to this evening's June 4th Public Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilman Camburis?
Here.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Here.
Councilman Vargo?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Here.
Mayor Tonella?
Here. Please raise for a flag salute. Adequate notice of this meeting was duly provided to the Verona Cedar Grove Times and the Star Ledger by email and published in an annual meeting dated January 6, 2017, and filed with the Township Clerk and posted on the public bulletin board in the municipal building lobby in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. Item 2, extraordinary business of the Township Council, dedication of municipal court. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to welcome, on behalf of the council, members of Judge Scanlon's family who are here with us tonight. It gives me great pride as the mayor, on behalf of the council and the township, to be able to stand here tonight and dedicate this council chamber in memory of Judge Robert A. Scanlon. Judge Scanlon passed away on October 20th, 2017, at the age of 91. He was predeceased by his beloved wife Joyce and his cherished son Michael, and he's survived by his 8 children, some are here tonight, his 24 grandchildren, and his 13 great-grandchildren. He lived a remarkable life during his 91 years, many of which were dedicated to Cedar Grove, the town he called home, for 67 years. Judge Scanlon was appointed the municipal prosecutor for Township of Cedar Grove in 1965. In 1970, he was appointed municipal court judge, where he served for 27 years until his resignation in 1997. For those who did not know Judge Scanlon, and even for those of us who did, he lived a life that many of us would envy and certainly made his family very proud. Judge Scanlon was born and raised in Montclair. He was a graduate of Montclair High School and a member of the Montclair High School baseball team, where he was a starting third baseman on a 1942 team that won both the state championship and the Greater Newark tournament. For those of us who grew up playing baseball in Cedar Grove, especially at Memorial High School when it was known as, you know how hard it was to win the Greater Newark tournament, how much that championship is cherished by the baseball players and the coaches in town, let alone winning a state championship on top of it. Now, upon graduation, Judge Scanlon enlisted in the U.S. Navy in 1943. He was a survivor of a German submarine attack that torpedoed and sank his ship in the North Atlantic. After his discharge from his service, Judge Scanlon graduated from Rutgers Law School and was admitted to the New Jersey Bar in 1952. He was engaged in a private practice at law firms located in Newark, Caldwell, and later in Verona. In addition to his public service to our community, he was also a founding parishioner at St. Catherine Siena Church, where he served on the campaigns to build the school, the rectory, and the covenant, all of which we continue to utilize and enjoy today. On a personal level, I feel very fortunate to be able to have called Judge Scanlon and his family my neighbors and friends for many years. And later on in life, as a young lawyer, to be able to call Judge Scanlon a mentor, as he would always make time to meet with me. For those of us who knew him, he was an imposing figure. He commanded respect in this courtroom, but he also treated those who came before this court with great respect as well. During all the years he served our township, he made us very proud, and I firmly believe he also helped, along with our police department, to protect and keep our community safe. There's no doubt that he set the bar for those who have come after him. It gives me great pride to hereby dedicate this council chamber in memory and honor Judge Robert A. Scanlon, so that those who come before the court will always remember the great legacy that he left behind. You know, I think on two personal notes that I had with the judge. You know, as a young teenager, when he used to come up and down our street on Skytop, you knew you wanted to get out of the way, as my dad used to call him, the judge. You're always scared about the judge coming up and down the street. And then as you got older, growing up in town, you knew the judge in this town, he was considered tough. You didn't want to fool around in this court. But again, he demanded respect in this courtroom. And I think his toughness, again, kept our community safe. He was fair, but tough. And then as I got older, as a young lawyer, I reached out to him. And that tough, judge, that tough person, that tough persona, it was a gentle man, an educated man who would sit down with me at the diner, and we would talk, and he'd help. He always had a lending hand. And I'm really thankful to that, and I'm glad I got to know him. I'm so glad that all of you are here tonight. I'm proud to be here to dedicate this council chamber. We have a nice plaque up there in memory of him. I know Judge Brindisi is here with us tonight, and I thank him for being here. Like I said, I think Judge Scanlon set the bar, and Judge Brindisi is doing a great job following it as he continues to serve as our township judge now. I don't know if anybody from the council has any comments.
I would like to
Yes.
say something.
Yes, Mr.
I had the honor and the pleasure of working with Judge Scanlon when I first came on as a young town manager. And he has left his stamp on this community as a judge, as a citizen, and as a leader. And it's funny because I have two fond memories of the judge that I would like to speak of. And I spoke to Bill at his viewing, and the two issues, I think he wrote about them himself, and it was just a coincidence. Number one was that there was a gate to Parkridge Estates by his house.
Still is.
And he made sure that that gate stayed closed, because there's a condition in the resolution of that approval that says that gate's not to open until that development is totally finished. And to this day, that gate is still closed, and we're going to honor his memory and that resolution to the end.
Thanks.
Additionally, Judge had a pet peeve about, do you ever see these basketball hoops at the curb? And I stood here one day as a resident, tried to tell the judge what our town ordinance was. And very politely and very sternly, the judge put it upside his head and down the other side and just about told him. But that was always a pet peeve of his. He always protected the children in the town to make sure they had some place to play, in particular in front of their house. But ironically, when I did mention to Bill at the viewing, those were two things I believe that the judge wrote about, and it just struck a chord with me. But those are my fond memories of Judge Scanlon, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Ducci. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Anybody from the Scanlon family want to come up? I mean, I don't want to pose upon you. Thanks, Bill. No,
I already know it.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, people, thank you very, very much for this. Tom, I know you did a lot of work on this, so on behalf of our family, we would like to thank you for that. As it's stated on the plaque, my father worked in this court for 32 years, 5 as a prosecutor and 27 as a judge, and he was very, very proud of that. And on top of that, he thoroughly enjoyed it. And my guess is he is very, very pleased and proud that his name is now on this court. So thank you all very much.
Okay. As I said earlier, I don't, for the Scanlon family, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but, feel free if you'd like to exit. Now's a great time to exit. Thank you all for coming in tonight, and enjoy it. Have a good evening. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 3, approval of minutes. To consider approval of minutes of regular public meeting dated May 7th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Conguras?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Borgo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Tonella?
Yes. Item 4, public hearing to consider adoption of pending ordinance 18825, 2018, salaries unrepresented municipal employees. Is there a motion to approve?
Open the public hearing.
Oh, that's a good point. The meeting is open to the public on this item, and this item only. Is anybody wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close that portion of the meeting. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of pending ordinance number 18-825 to be published in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a passed ordinance to take effect as prescribed by law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? A roll call, please.
Councilman Conguras?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Borgo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Tonella?
Yes. Item 5, the meeting is now open to residents of the township wishing to be heard on any item on the agenda. Anybody wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close that portion of the meeting. Moving on to township reports. Mr. Tucci, good evening again.
Good evening, Mayor. One quick item I have for this evening. In the packet, there's a memo addressed to me from the police chief, and it's regarding the ordinance that we had, in particular, Chapter 205, prohibiting swimming at the Devil's Hole area. And the police chief writes me, and he did confer with the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. The one little glitch in the ordinance that we seem to overlook, and maybe we need to address and tweak, is that when we're dealing with minors, it's hard to cite them. The prosecutor's office is recommending that we tweak the ordinance so that we can cite the parents in the event that there is some violation there. And the recommendation is that we have our attorney amend the ordinance to add that little bit of caveat into the ordinance.
I have no objection to that. Anybody have any objection to that?
But that's the recommendation
No,
from the
Mr.
Essex
Tucci.
County Prosecutor's Office
Okay.
on how we should handle these matters.
So, Mr. Zelinski, you'll take care of that and get back a proposed ordinance
Yes.
for us? Thank you. Great. Anything else, Mr.
That's all I
Tucci?
have, Mayor.
Oh, short and sweet. All right, Mrs. Stutz, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. The only item I have is a reminder that
Tomorrow.
this is the month for ABC license renewals. There's a memo in the packet concerning the current status of renewals, and there will be a resolution on the agenda of June 18th
Okay.
to carry that out.
Okay. And then also tomorrow, obviously, is primary.
Tomorrow
Okay.
is the primary
Right.
election. The polls are open from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Stutz. Anything else? All right. Mr. Zelinski, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. I have two matters for executive session, one pertaining to the Coptic Church litigation and another one pertaining to anticipated litigation.
Thank you, Mr. Zelinski. All right. Okay. Moving on to township reports. Deputy Mayor, any report?
Just briefly, just want to say thank you to Mr. Tucci. As everyone knows, Cedar Street is a real war zone, I guess, at this point. And so, a resident reached out to me that his sprinklers were broken. There were other residents on Cedar Street. The same thing happened. I reached out to Mr. Tucci. He reached out to Mr. Palumbo, and the residents are now happy that the contractor has been there and it's all being taken care of. So thank you for
That's good to hear that.
thank you for your fast response to that. And the residents there really appreciate it. That's all I have.
That's it? On that note, Mr. Tucci, maybe can you give the public an update? What's the status of Route 23 and the repair work going in here and the total repavement? I know there's some update. I mean, not.
Well, the repair work at this point, it was supposed to start the beginning of May. That has been pushed back now. The timeline, I believe, is October.
By the state of New
By the
Jersey.
state of New Jersey to do the overlay.
Right.
Which will start on Bluefield Avenue in Verona and extend all the way to the Wayne border.
And when you say you believe, you're not,
Again, that's tentative at
Right.
this point, because as they're moving along, they're finding more and more gas lines that they need to change, interconnections. It's, now, they've replaced all the line on Pompton Avenue, but the lines that come in from the off streets, they're finding that they're having problems. In particular, we're looking to pave Bowden Road in its entirety.
Right.
Council, as a matter of fact, one of the items on the bond ordinance is Bowden Road, which 80% of it is a grant. And that may have to be delayed because they have some gas leaks they cannot find here. And if you look from Route 23 probably to Rugby Road, there's probably 23 patches that they've dug up over the last year and a half that they just can't seem to find what they're looking for. But hopefully that will be resolved, because we're not going to pave that roadway until that issue is resolved, because we're not paving and having cut it up. And that's the same issue that we're experiencing on Cedar Street. Now, we normally notify public service 1 year in advance what roads we're anticipating doing. Well, after we got started with the roadway, they told us they needed to change the gas main. That's why there's a month and a half delay. You'll see the contractor from public service changing the gas main. They started, I believe, last week. So that's going to take about a month to a month and a half. Then the contractor will come back and do the final overlay and pavement and finalize that project. But that's where we are, Mayor.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, Mr. Tucci, because I know a lot of the councilman in a second, a lot of the residents are approaching us as council members upset about I guess the condition of Route 23, not knowing that it's really out of our control. We wanted, it was supposed to be done originally last spring in 2017, if I recall correctly.
Right.
And it keeps getting pushed back and pushed
You have
back.
to understand, there's three elements here going on. You have one contractor from public service doing the gas work. You have a second contractor that's doing the asphalt patching behind them. And then you have the state of New Jersey as the third element, going to do the final overlay. So until phase 1 and phase 2, the gas line and the patching is done on the subbase, the third element will not be completed. And that's where we are.
I just really hope that it gets done before we go into another winter. It'd be really upsetting if it doesn't. Councilman Vargo?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tucci, at the last March 19th meeting, we talked about 3.5 months to complete. Is that still going to take 3.5
It's
months?
still, that's the long-term. It's supposedly going to be shorter, but they always give you the long-term schedule.
So that's
They're
the
saying 3.5 months.
3.5 months and hopefully condense it with the winter?
Hopefully, it's going to be sped up. I mean, I know that they're taking a lot of pressure from the communities. I know Wayne and Verona and ourselves, we're keep pressuring them that we need this done.
Right.
Because, look, as people ride down, they're hitting potholes, some people are blowing out tires, and we keep referring them to their insurance policies to pick up the costs here. But again, it's our residents that are incurring the wrath on their vehicles.
Yeah.
So that's why we keep calling them, telling them, when are we going to get this done, when are we going to get this done. But that's the schedule as of right now.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Any other comments, questions? Councilwoman Peterson, you have any report?
Good evening,
Good
Mayor.
evening.
Just a couple things. The Municipal Alliance Committee, again, will be hosting summer movies. Tuesday, June 26th, will be Beauty and the Beast. July 31st will be Jumanji, and that'll be at Morgan's Farm. And Friday, the 24th, will be Black Panther at the town pool. They start at dusk, and always a great, fun-free family event. So I just want to remind everyone of that. And also, the Cedar Grove softball, they are the county champs this year, first time since 2010 that they have secured that title. And they're also the sectional state champs. So I was hoping that perhaps, if the council doesn't mind, that maybe we could recognize that achievement by the Cedar Grove girls softball.
Any objection? I think it's a great idea. Ms. Stachel, can you coordinate having the team come down here in the summer, sometime after the rework in July? That works for everybody? Great. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
great. Thank you. That's all I have
Thank you.
tonight. Thanks.
Councilman Camberos?
Just one thing. The Environmental Commission's looking at possibly putting a charging port for electric vehicles, and we'd like to work with the Downtown Advisory Committee, Robbie especially, with talking about what business, where would the location would be, grant money, and possibly maybe something with the businesses. That's it.
Okay.
It's preliminary.
Sure. We have, Councilman, we have a meeting on the 20th, I believe. That's our next Downtown Advisory Committee meeting.
Okay.
If you'd like, you can attend that, and we can discuss it there with the entire committee.
Fair enough. All right, thank you.
So Councilman, I assume you or I guess you as a liaison would meet with the Downtown Advisory Committee go back to the Environmental Commission,
Yes.
and you guys, the commission would make a recommendation to this council for us to
Correct.
proceed? Okay, great,
So
thank you.
We'll network to figure, all the particulars with it. 'Cause
Okay.
we also need like some type of universal charging port, because there's some vehicles, and then also we gotta talk to Mr. Tucci about, where exactly would be acceptable, and then grant money, and then something maybe from the businesses, if it makes
Okay.
a good idea.
Councilman Fargo, any report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few items on my report. So, as everybody knows, the Cedar de Mayo event was canceled, but one of the pieces of that event was the art auction. So now we have the art that was displayed on Pompton Ave for the past, about a month ago. It was all taken down. I would just announce that the art will be auctioned at the next Chamber of Commerce concert, at the first one. The rain date would be the following one. We thought it was a good idea. There's a lot of members from the public there. So if you're interested in the art, we'll have a stand there, and all of the art will be auctioned there.
Do you have the date of that concert? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I think it's
Take a look.
July 7th.
Okay,
Off the top of my head.
right,
I
okay,
think we can find out some more
Right.
details, but I think it's either the 7th or the 10th.
okay.
It's the 10th.
Thank you.
So that was good news. We have, I want to thank Mr. Tucci as well. We have, I've been working with Janice Fearon to set up the memorial over at Panther Park. I don't know if you've driven by Panther Park at all, but there is a giant boulder there. I was sort of picturing.
You asked for big.
I did. We did. So it was. It's a perfect memorial for Bill Fearon, and we're looking forward to starting it. I met with Janice Fearon. We identified the location for it, the way it's going to be angled, and some of the things that she would like to do around it. So that boulder there it really makes a statement. So I encourage you to drive by to see. Mr. Tucci called me up and he said, I just want to let you know the boulder has been placed there, and it's bigger than we expected. So it's perfect. It really is a perfect memorial, and we look forward to getting that set up. It will be hopefully unveiled, if everything goes right, with our plaque and all the behind-the-scenes work that we have to do. We're looking to unveil it sometime in September. So we'll have some more information on that. And then last but not least, Mr. Tucci, I'm going to touch base with you on the crosswalk on Bradford. I know I asked about it the last meeting. I know it's in Mr. Palumbo's hands to design it. I would.
Well, actually, I don't
Go ahead. No,
I don't mean
please.
to interrupt you.
Yep.
The first step was that I have a report coming for the governing body from the traffic safety officer, because that's where it has to start. He has to sign off on it as a traffic safety guy, then Alex will take it, do a certification, and then send it off to the county. But that's where it is right now. It's with our traffic safety officer,
Okay.
Lieutenant Pumphrey, is doing a report for the governing body.
That's fantastic. Because I ask again about it, and I appreciate that update. I'm glad things are moving along, because I was there again on Friday night. And, you have the kids sort of running back and forth between the fields. So it'd be really nice to get a crosswalk there, and I'm happy that it's progressing. So I appreciate the update, Mr. Tucci.
All right.
That's all that I have.
That's all, yeah? Thank you, Councilman. Just two things for me. Mr. Tucci, the clean sweep that was scheduled this past Saturday, we're rescheduling that just for the public's knowledge for this Friday at 4 p.m.?
4:30,
4:30, we meet at the steps of Town Hall.
side steps of Town Hall.
Perfect. All the organizations
All
have
the
been notified?
organizations have been called. They were called on Friday to cancel, and they're aware
Perfect.
of what the rain date is.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then I just want to congratulate our incoming mayor, Joseph Sakala, and our incoming mayor, deputy mayor, Robbie Vargo. Both were unanimously selected at our last staff meeting. There'll be obviously a resolution in the packet at our reorganization, but I want to congratulate them both, and looking forward to continue to working with both of you next year, all right?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Item 7, to consider a resolution concerning appointment of Municipal Alliance Committee member.
Be it resolved that Molly Bauer be appointed to fill a vacancy as a student member on the Municipal Alliance for a 3-year term effective immediately and terminating December 31st, 2019.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Borgo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Canella?
Yes. Item 8, new business. A, to consider introduction of pending bond ordinance 18826, various capital improvements.
A bond ordinance authorizing various general improvements in and for the Township of Cedar Grove and the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating $1,250,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,213,000 of bonds or notes to finance part of the cost thereof.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any, under discussion, Mr. Tucci, can you just give a brief overview?
Normally, I would like to give a rundown
Yep.
of what the projects are. On our general bond ordinance, which comes out of the Township General account, we have police bathroom reconstruction downstairs. We have our annual roadway overlay program, $250,000. Turf management at Panther Park, $17,000. A new chipper for the Department of Public Works, $40,000. With all the storms and the tree damage we've been having lately, we need a second chipper. Morgan Farm, we have sign replacement there. There are 3 or 4 signs that need to be replaced there, $10,000. Acquisition of fire department safety equipment, $8,000. Panther Park batting cage, which hopefully that's going to be starting very soon, $10,000. Tree replanting program, $40,000. Reconstruction of Bowden Road, $485,000. But I want to just make a note of that. $280,000 of that is an NJDOT grant we're getting from the state of New Jersey, and I believe another $75,000 is coming from the Community Development Block Grant. So that will offset a major portion of that. Acquisition of general safety equipment, which is basically our safe access to schools. You'll see we do improvements around the schools, $10,000. Curb and sidewalk replacement, wherever trees lift town access ways, we go in every year. That's $12,000. Fire department pagers, we replace X amount of pagers every year, $8,000. Acquisition of fire department breathing apparatus, same thing there. We buy X amount. We ask the chiefs from each of the companies to identify 2 or 3 of each company, and we do it by attrition rather than doing all at one fell swoop. Acquisition of computer hardware and software, that's just a catch-all account for anything that goes on in town hall or public works, any computer upgrades we need. Asphalt hot box, $30,000. That's to do pavement in sections larger than what we can do right now. Right now, we're just doing small potholes. We'll be able to do sections of roadway with the hot box. What the hot box allows you to do is take out old asphalt from the roadway, reclaim it, you throw it back in, it reheats and recycles the old asphalt, and you're able to reuse it. So that's another benefit to that. Municipal building window replacement. Again, our windows are approximately 25 years old. We started last year. We replaced 5 or 6 windows in the building each year. Rather than do it all in one fell swoop, it's just like your house. Can't afford to do everything all at one time. We do it a little at a time, and we chip at that rock. Brand new dump truck, $185,000. Those are very important during snow season, and a couple of our trucks are getting old. It's a replacement of one of the trucks. DPW diagnostic computer replacements, a computer for them to diagnose truck problems. Road department HVAC replacement. One of the units in the road department has gone bad. That needs to be replaced. Panther Park turf repair. This is to replace the whole infield at the girls softball field, not the outfield. It's all the beige and infield area. We already are in a class action suit with the turf company, but we have this money here. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to do this in a prior year, so I took it out last year. I think our attorney's checking with our attorneys to see if we can go ahead, because I'm looking at the infield right now, and it's getting a little bit ragged and worn, and it needs to be replaced. Community park, bocce courts, I explained this to the council. We're looking to add 2 more bocce courts next to the existing ones down at Community Park with lighting. Municipal building air conditioning replacement, same thing. We normally replace 2 or 3 air conditioning units. These units that we have throughout the building are over 20 years of age. And that's basically what our general account bonding will be for this year. Then we have 2 other bond ordinances. One is for the water department, And again, we have an HVAC unit that needs to be replaced down at the water department. The GIS system, Phase 3, we have all our water lines, hydrants, valves on GIS. And every year, Michael Jordan, our foreman, does a little bit more work, because right now, in locating these things, a lot of times, when a company comes in to do repaving, they overlay valves, and we lose track of them. But when you have them on GIS, you're able to go back and identify where everything. And the other thing is, the state of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection requires us to submit a report to them where we identify all our water lines, all our outfall structures, so that there's a general database collected by the state of New Jersey. Annual leak survey, every year, we have a company come in and does leak detection. When you have a water system that you operate, you're not allowed to have more than a 15% water loss in your system. Otherwise, DEP comes in and starts fining you. So what happens is, this company comes in and identifies, they come out in the dead of night when really there's not a lot of water movement, and they sound every street in the town. And believe it or not, they do pick up a lot of leaks that develop over the winter months. It's money well spent. We do it every year. Water meter replacement, $51,000. That's just our water meter stock. Landscape trailer, the water department owns lift stations, pump stations throughout, and we have landscaping around them. One is in Little Falls, it's adjacent to a residential area. And we have lawnmowers. We go there, we plant, and make sure that we're good neighbors and that our property looks as good as theirs. Patton Terrace pump station upgrades. This is just upgrades to the pumps and motors there. Replacement of water utility truck. The replacement of one of the older trucks is coming out of service. Water main replacement. We're looking to do a piece of water main each year. Michael Jordan has a total list of streets that we're looking to do. Last year we did Lakewood. It may be Sherman. It may be one of the other streets that we're looking to overlay. And then insertion valve. This is to put there's a lot of places in town where there are valves that are no longer operational. And rather than take those valves because they're frozen shut, rather than dig up the road, what we do is we dig a hole and put an insertion valve right in the main. And what it does is we bypass, and it allows us more options in shutting down the water system when we have a problem. On the sewer side, we have general improvements to the plant, $30,000. A sewer utility truck with snowplow, $45,000. Improvement to Francisco Pump Station, $15,000. A new study on our filter mechanism that we have down at DPW. Security fence upgrades. You'll see on Little Falls roadside, we have some new fencing, but there's a lot of old fencing that continues down to the old bridge structure. And again, that faces residential people. We want to be good neighbors. We want to put a new fence to make sure it's aesthetically pleasing. Just like their properties are nice, we should keep ours nice. And then we have repairs to our RBCs, rotating biological contactors, $20,000. So that bond ordinance is $140,000, and that's just an overview, Mayor and Council, of what we have on for bonding for this year.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Now, for our newest council members, as you guys are nearing your first year here, you're going to notice that we do this every year, and I think Mr. Tucci hit the nail on the head when he said we chip away at this every year, rather than, in 1 year, you wait, and you have millions and millions of dollars of repairs and purchases. We chip away each year and continue to maintain it just like you do your house. So I appreciate the overview, Mr. Tucci, for the public. Just going back to the motion that was made, Deputy Mayor, would you mind just reading the motion into the record one more time, please?
Sure, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move introduction of pending bond ordinance number 17-826 to be published in full in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a pending bond ordinance with a public hearing scheduled for June 18, 2018. That's supposed to be 18-826?
Yeah, 18. You're right, yep, 18.
18, so that's, the motion is for bond ordinance number 18-826.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There's a motion. Is there a second again?
Second.
We have any other discussion? A roll call, please.
Councilman Camburas?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Vargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Tonello?
Yes. Item 8B, to consider introduction of pending bond ordinance 18827, sewer utility improvements. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move introduction of pending bond ordinance 18-827 to be published in full in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a pending bond ordinance with a public hearing scheduled for June 18, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Under discussion, anything additional to what Mr. Tucci already provided? A roll call, please.
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Vargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Tinella?
Yes. Item 8C, to consider introduction of pending bond ordinance 18828, water utility improvements.
Mayor, I moved introduction of pending bond ordinance 18-828 to be published in full in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a pending bond ordinance with a public hearing scheduled for June 18th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Under discussion, anything in addition to what Mr. Tucci provided? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Vargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Tinella?
Yes. For item 8D, Mr. Zelinski, you want to
Yes,
step
Mayor, I
out?
need to recuse myself from item 8D, E, and F.
Thank you. Okay. Mrs. Semmeraro, you want to join us up on the dais? Thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
All right. Let's moving on to item 8D. To consider introduction of pending ordinance 18829, amending Chapter 268 of the Township Code entitled zoning to establish inclusionary development regulations for multifamily housing to address municipal affordable housing obligations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Here you go.
Is there another?
Yeah, no.
Sorry. I move introduction of pending ordinance number 18-829 to be published in full in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a pending ordinance with a public hearing scheduled for July 16th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Under discussion, Mr. Semmerau, you just, for items 8D, E, and even F, you just wanted to give just a brief synopsis of what we're doing here and for the public's edification, please?
Sure. If I could just ask the clerk for the agenda so I can see exactly which order
Yep.
they go in.
Got it.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So we are dealing with two ordinances that we anticipate resolving pending litigation, which is the affordable housing declaratory judgment litigation that the township's currently involved in. These ordinances are zoning ordinances, and tonight is just the introduction. Zoning ordinances have a little bit of a different process for adoption than an ordinary ordinance. Tonight would be, if the council proceeds, obviously, would be for the introduction of these ordinances and a referral to the planning board for their review and comment. The planning board has 35 days to respond to the governing body with their comments at that time. If they suggest any changes, this governing body is not obligated to honor those changes, but they will consider them, obviously, and then decide whether or not they accept them or go for an adoption as it currently stands. At that point in time, the second read, which has to be at least 35 days, should be 40 days from today's date, and
40 days.
we will designate the second read at the meeting this evening. There will be an opportunity for public comment, and at that point in time, Mayor, you'll open it up to the public for comment, and at that point in time, we could answer questions or concerns that the public may have.
Thank you, Ms. Semmerau. I appreciate the detailed response and information. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No, so we have a motion, we have a second with regard to item 8D. A roll call, please.
Councilman Camburis?
Recuse due to conflict.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Vargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Tinella?
Yes. Item 8E, to consider introduction of pending ordinance 18830, amending Chapter 268 of the Township Code entitled zoning to establish overlay inclusionary zoning standards for townhouse and multifamily housing to address unmet need, affordable housing obligations, zoning overlay. Is there a
Mayor.
motion?
Mayor, I move introduction of pending ordinance 18-830 to be published in full in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a pending ordinance with a public hearing scheduled for July 16th, 2018.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? In addition to what Mr. Cimarero already provided?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Just addressing items D and E together. I'll just say this is something that it was a tough decision, even though this is only the introduction and there's a long way to go still. I know that this is not something that our residents will be happy with, but given the options and some of the choices that we had to make, I can personally tell you, this council and all of our residents, that this was one of the toughest decisions that I've had to make sitting up here on the town council. It is, I will unequivocally say, this is absolutely not something that I want to do. But when we look at, the future of Cedar Grove and what the obligations that the state is trying to force on us, I think I speak for many of us on the town council that this is somewhat of a decision that we sort of felt forced into. I'm not a gambler, and when you look at the options, I felt that this was the best option for the Cedar Grove now and for the future of Cedar Grove, but I will unequivocally state that this is not something that I want to do, but I do believe it's best for the future of Cedar Grove. So.
Thank you, Councilman.
Can I just add on to
Sure,
that?
Deputy Mayor.
Just for the public's knowledge, Councilman Vargo is referring to these ordinances that we're introducing. The public is going to hear a lot about them. Right now, we're just introducing them, and I know it sounds a little vague when you hear it being expressed in the way that it was just expressed, but all the details will be out there about these ordinances. We're going to have a public hearing, and we're also, I believe, going to have our co-counsel here at the same time, along with Mr. Cimarero and our planner to answer all the questions that either at the July 16th meeting
And
or...
the special master from the court.
Oh, Betsy will be here too?
Will be here.
Yes.
So we'll also have the special master. And really, this all stems from a lawsuit that not only Cedar Grove was brought into, but every municipality in the state of New Jersey, in order to figure out what the realistic development potential is in our town, and in all the various towns. And we're, as Councilman Vargo said, we were kind of these obligations have been put upon us, and we as a council, as you'll hear many times in the next month, you had to make some tough decisions. So I guess we can leave it at that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to add on to that, I know we're going to have an opportunity to speak in much more detail at the public hearing at the second reading, and in between now and then, the public will also have an opportunity to speak, comment, question the planning board when the matter is in front of the planning board, and then we'll come back in front of us here, and we'll have a very detailed meeting at that point in time for the public's information. And as the Deputy Mayor said, and Mr. Tucci said, all of our professionals will be present at that meeting to answer questions of the public, as well as a special master who represents the court, again, to answer questions of the public. We want the public's questions and comments to be addressed before we vote as a council on both of these ordinances. And I don't want to speak for the Deputy Mayor and my council colleagues, but I unequivocally concur with every comment that the Deputy Mayor said. And without repeating everything he said, I concur with everything he said, and I'll go into much more detail about it at the next public meeting. So with that being said, we have a motion, we have a second. A roll call, please. Oh, yes, Councilman.
They did have the adoption date read in with the motion, correct?
Yeah, it is. So that's a good point. Mrs. Cimarero, two comments. Councilman Vargo incoming Deputy Mayor Vargo is telling me he's going to be away that day. Councilman Camberos has to recuse himself. We may have a scheduling conflict based upon, vacation schedules. So for purposes of introducing tonight, we can let the public know it's July 16th, but if we find out we need to amend that date, can we provide a subsequent notice? We need to,
You can't do another notice. What you could do is you could, at that meeting,
Which
indicate
meeting?
that it's at the 16th meeting.
You can carry it.
You have it carried.
for another, until maybe our next meeting if we had to?
Correct.
I'm just concerned, you're going to have 3 council people here because we're going to be missing one. And obviously, the other one is, has to recuse himself.
Well, we
So-
could amend the original motion on the first ordinance and change the return date if you wish. And we could have that subsequent date now inserted in this motion. Or you could leave it on and we could simply appear at the later council
Change it.
meeting and on the record, change it on the record.
Why don't we look to change it now? I know if everybody agrees, Councilman Vargo knows his vacation schedule, and let's just try to figure it out. Is it possible to do it before July 16th?
No.
No, it's got to be after July 16th.
Yes.
Many of the days.
Yeah, then we're going to run into an issue because I know there's others of us who have vacation scheduled, unfortunately.
And then you have your professionals
Yeah.
that have to be scheduled.
Why?
Were all the professionals available on July 16th? Is that
16th,
that's
yeah,
already
and the
confirmed
special
then?
master. That's the,
We may not be able to change it.
that's the dilemma.
Well, technically you always could change it. It's just that you're going to end up having to read it into the record on the 16th to whatever that subsequent date would be. If we end up changing it, and Mr. Tucci raises a good point, if we end up changing it to the next council meeting this evening, we may learn that one of the professionals we need isn't present. So maybe the prudent thing to do is to leave it on for the 16th. We need not have all the professionals come into that meeting in order for it to be carried.
Right.
So I know that I'm available. I certainly could come in, sit in this seat for the motion
Right.
to have it carried.
Mr. Mayor, may
Yes,
may I make
Councilman,
a suggestion?
sure.
Why don't we leave it on for July 16th for now? Because we can't make a determination right now with all of the professionals, without all of the professionals and the special master. We could either have it on the 16th, or you could carry it to another date where everybody's available.
I think that's the, yes,
Just-
Mr. Tucci.
Just a suggestion I just want to throw out
Yep.
there. I don't know if it's a possibility or not, but I don't know how far away you're going to be. Maybe you can conference call in or even video conference. I don't know, the judge, I don't know if he's got a video screen. Or you
We don't need to make that decision tonight. That's some possibility. I don't want to impose
throw
on.
something out.
Right. Good suggestion. So, in all seriousness, why don't we keep it on for July 16th? And then we can address that issue as it comes closer. If everybody agrees on it, Councilwoman Peterson, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's okay? All right. We need to do a roll call, Ms. Stutz?
Yes. Councilman Camberos,
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Vargo,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala,
Yes.
Mayor Tonella.
Yes. Item 8F, to consider resolution concerning referral of zoning ordinances to planning board.
Motion?
Well, I don't, can he make that motion? Because you're referring both of them.
Yeah, I think that you should recuse yourself just for the sake of safety on that.
Okay.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Camberos,
Recrues?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Vargo,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Yes.
Mayor Tonella.
Yes. Just before, Mrs. Cimarro, before you step down, I was going to jump back on the reports. I'd like to go, if there's no objection, into executive session to discuss COA litigation. So, Mrs. Cimarro, if you'd stick around to this evening, we can have you come back in for that.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, moving on to item 8G, to consider resolution concerning amendment of 2018 capital budget.
Be it resolved that the capital budget is hereby amended as set forth herein.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just an explanation of what the amendment to the budget is. Anytime you do capital bonding ordinances, you need a down payment of it. So what we do is we take the money out of the capital budget, the operating budget, to pay for the down payment on the capital ordinances. So there's money in our budget that has to be amended to use for the down payment on the bonding ordinances that you just passed. So that's what you're amending in the budget, to include that down payment in there.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Any other comment? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Quindías?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Vargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Canella?
Yes. Item 8H, to consider resolution concerning estimated tax bills.
Be it resolved that the tax collector is hereby authorized and directed to prepare and issue estimated tax bills for the Township of Cedar Grove for the third installment of 2018 taxes.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just an explanation on why we do estimated tax bills. Because what happens is the County of Essex wants their tax money, I believe it's like the first week in August. And what happens is, a lot of times they don't have their budget approved by them. Ironically, it's their budget that's not approved. So the tax rate is not struck, so we can't send out regular tax bills. If we don't send out regular tax bills and have a cash flow, then we have to go out and borrow money to pay the county the taxes that we owe them. It's because we have to pay them their money in a timely fashion. So what we do is we prepare estimated tax bills every year so that we have a cash flow that we're able to pay our bills. And then what happens is when the next quarter bill comes out, it gets adjusted out. And that's why you see a differential between your third and fourth quarter tax bills.
Thank
I don't
you.
know if that made any sense,
Yep.
but
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Any other comment? Seeing none, a roll call, please.
Councilman Quindías?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Vargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Canella?
Yes. Item 9, approval of bills.
Be it resolved that the summary of bills having been duly audited and found correct are hereby ordered paid in the amount of $430,989.67.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? A roll call, please.
Councilman Quindías?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Vargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Yes.
Mayor Tanella?
Yes. Item 10, the meeting is now open to residents of the township wishing to be heard on any item on or off the agenda concerning township business. Anybody wishing to be heard? Mr. Burns? Good evening.
Paul Burns, 2 Elm Drive.
one item.
Mr. Burns?
Mostly, I just had a couple of questions on what we were just talking about. Excuse me. We were talking about the gas lines. And I know it came up on the agenda too, it was about the water pipes. We have a lot of water pipes that we're doing. We're digging the roads up for the water pipes. And my curiosity, no, we're not, but my curiosity is that especially on my street, just on one. Okay, that's the only thing I'm really worried about anyway, is me. But it's, we have antiquated pipes throughout the town. And I know that the state's taking care of that, but is there any problems with the water pipes like we have on the side streets, Mr. Tucci?
Mr. Tucci, can you answer the residents?
Right now, the water department with our consultant is analyzing all the water lines in town, similar to the roadway inventory, and we're doing an analysis of the whole water system. And that couples up with what I spoke about earlier, the leak detection program, and we will identify all the roads that need to have water main replacement, and we'll make that decision at that point. That's why you just saw $275,000 in water main replacement, but there was no identification of which ones. because we're waiting for that analysis to come back from our water consultant. When that happens, we will identify, but again, we'll take the worst ones first, as we normally do. We look at the size of the line, the age of the line, and the water pressure in the line, and that's how we determine which ones will be done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tucci.
I understand that totally, but like I say, and I got to go with the history here, because I was, and I don't want to badger on it, but, to redo the street and then have to come back and have time and again, 15, 20 feet down, the pipes bursting, because it's an old system, obviously. And that falls, I understand that falls in line with the leak and everything like that, and I see you're adjusting and everything. I just have issue that we pave a street, we tear it up, we take a pipeline, and we keep repairing these lines that are like 10 feet apart. Obviously, my street is an old and decrepit line, but it's just something to think about. And I know you are. I know you're thinking about it. I just wanted to bring it up, public notice, just to be sure.
Mr. Burns, just in response to your concern,
Yes.
we'll take a look at that again, obviously. We can get back to you on that. But we appreciate your comment on that,
Mr.
okay?
Tucci is well, he's up on top of it.
Yep.
He is on top of it. I just had another question, not a question, but just about the town restructure. We're talking about the lights and everything, up and down. We're doing a bang-up job, doing all these relights and everything like that, but I got to bring it back to the attention. Grove Avenue is terrible. Now, Mr. Tucci had told us previously that we're not allowed to put another light so close to Myrtle Avenue. Okay, it's too close to put a light. But turning on Grove Avenue either way is absolutely dangerous. And I just I have to ask again if we've looked into it any further to make that a safer turn. Because it's terrible. You can't get out there. You can't. I walk the dogs up the street, and nobody looks either way. Nobody. I don't. You look left. You don't look right. Somebody comes up the street. You're going to hit them. So Grove Avenue is a big issue, and I wish we would look into it a little further.
Well, in response, Mr. Tucci, what's the status of?
Well,
just
again, Department of Transportation governs Route 23.
Right.
And again, Mr. Burns is absolutely correct. The close proximity to the light on Myrtle Avenue, they will not allow another light there. The only thing they will allow is put a no left turn onto Pompton, only right-hand turns. And then I had thrown out a suggestion a while back about some replanning that whole Grove Avenue with the development that's going to be coming in and probably additional traffic flow. I think it needs to be taken a serious look at again on reconfiguring that area.
Is that something that we would work with our planner to do?
Absolutely. But
Okay.
again, it's a good suggestion by
Right.
Mr. Burns, and we'd be more than happy to follow up on it.
The only other thing I have to say about the same subject is if you go up to Newberry's, you got the light, two lights. They got to be. They're no more than 30 feet apart, and that's the lights going up to the Claridge House. That's Route 23. So the stipulation. That's crossing the line. I think that's the same issue. I think they're exactly the same distance apart, and I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, it's good to hear too, Mr. Burns. I hear your concern, and I agree with you. Over on Lindsley, we have a similar issue, the way the traffic backs up over there too. But I'm happy to hear that. First priority, I want to get the Route 23, the piping completed and get it repaved. And it's good to hear that we're going to be able to take another look at it with our professionals to see if we can address the issue that you're raising at some point in the future as well too. Right.
On a different issue.
Yep.
In the same issue, but about the cleaning of it. We're talking about our neighbors right across the street here. We're talking about beautification. And
Which neighbors are you referring to, Mr.
I'm
Burns?
talking about it right across the street. I'm talking about the bank. I'm talking about I'm sure it's going to come up about the I guess that's Taylor Brook. I think that is Taylor Brook. but you have a mess on the street. I hope it's not gonna be Route 23. Okay, I hope it's gonna be the side streets that the owners need to step up and beautify their own properties. You know, in other words, take care of it. I'm talking about the two banks. I'm talking about the Taylor Brook. I don't know who owns Taylor property. I think it's Cedar Grove. It may be the county. I don't know. But we're talking about making sure that the evergreens are cut and all this other garbage. You know, that it's just not on 23, but maybe off to the side. You understand what I'm talking about?
Definitely, yes, yes.
All the overgrowth and everything. Everything looks really nice right here on Bowden Road.
Right.
But right, Bowden Road. Yeah.
You're right.
Bowden? Yeah.
Right.
Across the street, you got a mess.
Mr. Tucci, can you address that?
Just to follow up on that, we already notified the state of New Jersey. If you look at the bridge on 23 where Taylor's Brook goes underneath, both of those bridges, they're deteriorating. We already notified DOT. They're responsible for 200 feet of Taylor's Brook from the bridge on both sides. So what happens is they have to come in, they're supposed to remove all that debris. On the opposite side, you see there's the Ferguson Insurance Agency, I believe it is. Now, that property owns a certain portion that's eroded away. So that property extends out. But where Mr. Burns is talking about on this side, where the overgrowth, that's NJDOT, and we already have them on notice to fix the bridge, because the bridge is totally deteriorating. All the concrete's peeling off. As a matter of fact, if you look at the sidewalk over the bridge, somebody punched holes, I don't know if it was public service or not, which is another dangerous condition. But they're already on notice, our township engineer has notified them already, and hopefully they're gonna come in and do some work here on the bridges themselves and on the growth on both sides.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tucci.
I knew you were up on it. I knew it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Burns, but before you sit down, just real quick, I always appreciate you coming here. The last time you were here.
I was nasty.
No,
I apologize.
No, well, you beat me to it.
I was.
I was going to tell you that I didn't treat you with the manner of respect that you deserve and every other resident deserves, regardless of how you treat me or anybody, member of the council. I just wanted to apologize for you as well, too. And
Except we'll move on.
Right? I already have.
I'm always watching. Don't forget.
Thank you for coming down tonight. Anybody else from the public wishing to be heard on anything on the agenda? Mr. Mullen?
Patrick Mullen, 28 Brookdale Avenue, Cedar Grove.
Amy Tafaro, 73 The Fairway.
So our purpose for coming to you tonight is as residents, but also as chair of the Cedar Grove Municipal Alliance Committee for Substance Abuse Prevention. And I realize that the council's been, had presentations regarding the legalization of marijuana. And we wanted to come to you as representing the Township Committee for Substance Abuse Prevention and give you our thoughts regarding it. One of the concerns we have is that, as you know, we are funded by a grant by the Governor's Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse. As such, with that grant, those are not taxpayer funds, but they flow down from the state to the county and then on to Cedar Grove. Our grant is about $27,000, 75% of which comes from the state, and then the other 25% comes graciously from the township. With that, the programs that are funded include everything from, not in total, but at least in part, for National Night Out, Red Ribbon Week, Heroes and Cool Kids, the movies at Morgan's Farm, and just to name a few. We've also had a couple programs recently on school violence. We're trying to reschedule a program for Hidden in Plain Sight, which addresses for parents what they're concerns about their kids, where they might be hiding illegal substances, etc. But as you know, our concern coming tonight is that with our grant funding, if legalization of marijuana were to take place in Cedar Grove for a dispensary, and we come with no issues regarding a medical dispensary or medical marijuana issue for people that have health issues, that can help prevent seizures, people that have cancer that need pain resolution, but it's more about, the programs that we do in town. We don't know the answer to this, but we wanted to at least bring to the council's attention, is that should a dispensary take place, or if the legalization takes place and there's a dispensary in Cedar Grove for recreational marijuana, there could be a chance that we might lose our grant. for the funding of the programs that we have. But that's not a definite, it's just to raise awareness that that could be a possibility down the road. The grant funding that we get is not a tremendous amount of money, but it does go to good programs within the township. And the way we kind of look at it is, it's hard for us to always say, the programs that we do in the schools for senior citizens, has it made a complete difference and touched lives? But if it's touched one life, made one difference, made one healthier choice, then it's a win. And it's always around instances where when someone is impaired through use of whether it's alcohol or marijuana or something different, a lot of times it's the innocent that get impacted, not always the person that's using it. So we hope to be able to continue the funding, the programs that we do in town, do different types of programs. But we just wanted to make the council aware that with the legalization, there's always a chance that our grant funding could be eliminated. We'd hate to see that happen. So any decisions that the council makes, we'll have to take that into consideration.
Before you do, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Mullen, I want to thank you and Ms. Tafaro for coming down here tonight. While I'm not surprised at all, the two of you have always been, on top of your game, for lack of a better term, with regard to Municipal Alliance. Members may come and go, but you two have always been a mainstay there. I feel very fortunate, as now Councilwoman Peterson is, as I had a chance to serve with you, and you've been doing it for a long time, and you're the epitome of what our residents are here who volunteer in our town and the years of service you put in. I appreciate you coming down, you informing us and of your thoughts and your opinion, and giving us the information as we continue to consider these issues. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of the council for your time and coming tonight, and obviously for volunteering on the committee, because your programs are, they're terrific, and they do touch the lives of the children, as well as our seniors. I mean, you're always thinking about different programs to put on and utilize the money that your organization receives to the best of its ability, down to the cent. And anybody who's served on that committee knows what I'm talking about. Down to the cent they look at to see what they can do to benefit our residents. I thank you. So, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Mullen, I echo everything that the mayor just said. I just want to follow up on your comments, though. This has always been my concern ever since we began talking about this. It would seem to me, and you probably can't answer the question, I'm just telling you my thoughts. It would seem to me that if the state legalizes the recreational use of marijuana, and then this council says, too bad, you're not going to do it here, that money that flows from the state may stop. Isn't that a possibility?
We have to say it's a possibility because we just don't know at this time. I mean,
We've gone to the county and asked them for kind of what their opinion is and what kind of stance they're taking, depending on what municipalities do, as far as allowing the legalization or not allowing the legalization within our specific municipality. And they have not come to a determination yet.
Okay.
So we don't know definitively if we allow the legalization of marijuana sales here in town, if that will impact our grant funding. And again, we do get about $27,000, and although that's not a ton of money, I mean, I've been on the Municipal Alliance since 2001. During the time I've been here, we've collected over $390,000 of funding that we've been able to give back in programs throughout the town. That's a lot of money when you think about over the years and what we've been able to do with it. So to lose that $27,000 a year is a lot of money for us, in our opinion.
Yeah, see, I think caution is really warranted, because even if there's legalization, that doesn't mean a dispensary is coming here. And if recreational use of marijuana is legalized, we outlaw it. There's never going to be a dispensary here anyway, but the state says, okay, you want to outlaw it, sorry, you're not going to get this money, then we suffer. And that's always been my concern and my thoughts with the council, not just, I hadn't thought about it from the Municipal Alliance standpoint, just from other larger standpoints, special education and things like that, funds that we get. So when you started talking, I thought that you were going to go that route, and then when you went the other way and you said, well, if we allow it, we may not get the funds. I think it might be the other way around.
The Municipal Alliance is for drug and substance abuse and prevention.
I understand
So-
that. But if the state, our governor has made no qualms or no secrets that this is not not going to get past him. This is something that he wants. It's his social agenda to do this, and I'm just concerned that he may punish the communities that don't follow this, if it ever does get passed to begin with. It's looking less and less like that every day. But I mean, just some concerns that I had to. I mean, I understand your point, and it's a valid concern, it's a valid point. But I think that there's a flip side that we have to consider too.
Just in response to the deputy mayor, and the deputy mayor and I have talked about this issue at length, and he knows I respect his opinion on this issue. With regard to his comment, that's a fight I'm willing to fight. I'm against I'm against the legalization of marijuana. Even if it got legalized, I'm against having it, sold legally in Cedar Grove. I said that before, I say it now, and I'll say it again in the future. And if the governor looks to penalize our community because of, we oppose his social agenda, I'm willing to take up that fight, with this council and our state legislature. Again, it's his social agenda, not mine, and as I feel, as a representative of this community, not Cedar Grove's. Yes, I'm not done yet, I know. But as you were going down that path, I thought the same thing, and I think, how could any, civil servant, look at, an organization like yours who has received over $300,000 in grants to combat drug abuse, you're going to have that money taken away because we don't want to legalize, marijuana in Cedar Grove. I think that flies in the, face of hypocrisy. It's ridiculous. And I understand the deputy mayor's concern, but again, I'm willing to fight that issue when it comes down to pipeline. And as he said, I think that pipeline is getting more narrower and narrower every day, because what I'm hearing from the state legislature that even on the governor's side, nobody wants it. So, anyway, yes, Councilman?
I just want to say I was honored to serve on the Municipal Alliance. I feel that there's no tax revenue that we can receive that is worth it if one of our young children in our town, I'm young referring to 25, 21 and over, should get hurt. I see it as blood money, and I'm definitely in agreement with Peter on this.
I think it would be a tremendous loss to lose that grant money, because the things that the funds go back into, even though they're not visible to every resident, they can, like we said, if it touches one person, or one person makes a better decision, and that's it, then that's definitely a win, as opposed to the flip side of that. And that's where it's really, Municipal Alliance has always been about awareness and education and information. And that's the purpose of us coming here tonight, is to continue that on, just so that you have an awareness, and we come before you distinctly to tell you that, what our concerns are. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. But whatever the result is that these funds continue to come to our community, and we continue to have them, so that we can do these programs and other programs. And we just want to make sure that you're aware, and whatever evolves into this discussion as it continues on, that, we've at least voiced what our concerns are, that we want these funds to continue to come to the community so we can continue to do the work of prevention. Because the work of the Municipal Alliance is about prevention. It's not so much about treatment, it's the prevention side of it. And that's what we want to continue to do.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Thank you, Mr. Tafaro.
If I may,
Councilwoman, sure.
Thank you guys so much for coming down. We've discussed this at length at our Municipal Alliance meetings, and it did come up that there was concern that if we should sell marijuana here in Cedar Grove, that maybe we would lose the funding, and I totally understand where you guys are coming from, and I just think, I appreciate your time and you coming down here, and I agree with it. I don't want it sold here in Cedar Grove. It's really a contradiction to try to use these programs to teach children that this is bad when you have people potentially standing outside smoking marijuana and, buying it. It's, how do you teach them that this is not what we want them to do, yet here they are doing it? So, thanks again for coming down. I'll do everything in my power to make it that it is not sold here in Cedar Grove, and if other towns choose to do it, so be it. But for our town here, I would really do anything in my power to not see that happen. So thank you guys very much for all you do.
Thank you.
Mr. Tucci?
May I just say,
Yes, sure.
I need to amend my report to include one
Oh,
item
okay.
for
Thank you.
confidential.
Thank you. Okay, sure, Mr. Tucci.
And that's land negotiations with the Cedarburg Board of Education. This is regarding the ball field.
Mm-hmm.
I almost forgot that.
Anybody else from the public wishing to be heard? None? Okay, seeing none, I close that part of the agenda. Whereas Section 8 of the Open Publics Meeting Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting of the mayor and council in certain circumstances, and whereas the mayor and council of the Township of Cedar Grove are of the opinion that such circumstances exist, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the Township of Cedar Grove, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that the public shall be excluded from the discussion of any action on the executive session of the meeting of the mayor and council of June 4th, 2018. The general nature of the subject matters to be discussed are Coptic Church litigation, anticipated litigation, COA litigation, and land negotiations. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public as soon thereafter.